The Handel and Haydn Society is well known in Boston for performing classical and Baroque music. But if you've been paying attention in recent years, the organization has also been exploring new ground in repertoire and outreach to the local community. And early this year, the Handel and Haydn Society appointed as resident conductor for its chorus a person familiar previously for his work with the Boston Children's Chorus. And we'd like to welcome Dr. Anthony Trecek-King. Thank you very much for being with us, Doctor.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Doctor, as I mentioned, a lot of people in Boston know you already musically, but I want to go to your background in music because I'm expecting somebody who began maybe as a child prodigy or had relatives who were musicians. You came in, so to speak, through a different door. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my mother was influential in getting me involved in music. So as a young kid, I was always involved in music, but it was never a career aspiration of mine. So ever since I was 10 years old, I told my dad I want to be an engineer, and so I was lining up everything to be an engineer. Even though I continued to play music throughout high school. In for college, for my undergraduate degree, I received a music scholarship, and that, in a sense, forced me to study music. And so I was a double major in music and engineering. And eventually, I realized that I actually didn't want to be an engineer, and had enough movement in the music world that it's like, let's just go ahead and finish that degree and see what that career path was like for me. But when I was studying undergrad, my department chair called me into his office, and he sat me down. And he said, have you ever thought about conducting as a career? And at that point, of course, the answer was no. But he planted a seed in me, and he asked a second question, which was, have you ever seen somebody who looks like you conducting? And at that particular time, I hadn't. I hadn't seen anybody who looked like me who was on the podium, directing an orchestra or a choir.
What's the lesson there about life-changing events?
One is you have to be open to it, right? And you never know when it's going to happen. But it's that planting of a seed, that idea, and that there's limitless possibilities that are out there for you. It's just a matter of seeing it. And once those doors open up, then anything is quite possible.
Well, I know you haven't totally abandoned your passion for science either, but what made you stick with music?
To me, music is something that you have to do, not something that you want to do, because it's actually quite, there's a lot of rigor in it, a lot of practice, alone time in a practice room, studying, reading, and so on. So it's something that has to be, I think, a passion. I tried all my life to kind of, not all my life, but in my younger years, to run away from music, where I'd finish a degree and then I'd look, okay, that was fun, let me move on to something else. But music kept pulling me back, and I finally realized that the one thing that I could do every day is music. I could do that every day and not get tired of it. Whereas other things, I get tired of it. I dabble in some computer science now. I do some coding, some website work. But after a week or two of that, I'm okay, I'm done for a bit. And then I can come back to it a little bit later on. So kind of keeping that part of my brain going is great. But the music is the piece that keeps me going day in and day out.
Aside from individual talent, what you're bringing to the Handel and Haydn Society is the entirety of your experience with the Boston Children's Chorus and all of its interactions with the community. Where do you see that taking Handel and Haydn?
Yeah, I think H&H it has a rich history actually at serving the community. Way back, in the 1860s, doing, a concert for the Emancipation Proclamation, performing a memorial service for Abraham Lincoln. There's a rich history with connections with the abolitionists. I mean, they're still doing concerts at the African American Museum, History Museum here in Boston. It's just I think for me, it's about capitalizing on that history and furthering it and seeing what we can do to broaden the reach of the organization even further into the communities of Boston. It's obviously a storied organization, being around for 206 years. And it's just a matter of creating awareness and creating pathways. And I think people honestly want to see themselves represented on stage, themselves represented in the organization. And I think that H&H is moving in that direction to create a organization that is diverse and reflects the city of Boston.
What about some of the new places where Handel and Haydn has been involved in performances? I caught one a couple of years ago at Roxbury Community College, and I'm getting a sense there's a new audience, maybe lots of people who are very sophisticated musically, but people who might not have been tuning into Handel and Haydn.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, some of our storied institutions, whether it's Symphony Hall or other locations around Boston, might not be as accessible or feel as accessible. Even if they are accessible, they might not feel like it's a place for everybody to be a part of that. So one of the great strategies is to take what you do into different communities. We certainly did that in my previous work with the Boston Children's Chorus. Is we looked for concert venues that are in different communities, and then just present a concert there. And if you do that over enough time, it's not just doing it once, because doing it once is great, but it doesn't build a connection. It's just kind of this little outreach thing that is paying more lip service. But to have an authentic connection, then you have to go there regularly and be a part of the community.
One of the things I also note about the programming for Handel and Haydn this year is that there is racial diversity, not only among the performers, but among the works being played. And this whole, I guess, stretching of the notion of the canon. You've got a new work by Jonathan Woody in the mix. What's the shaping vision around that?
I completely agree. It's if we look at the classical canon, it is primarily European and white, and it's leaving out a lot of voices, whether it's different genders or different ethnicities, from the concert stage. And there is a wealth of music that is largely missing from our concert stages. Another concert that H&H will be doing at the end of the year is featuring music of Joseph Boulange, who John Adams said is one of the most accomplished men in all of Europe. And here's this, a man of African descent living in France, composing music. I mean, he premiered the Paris symphonies for the Queen of France, and he's missing in a lot of our history books. And you wonder, if he's the most accomplished man in all of Europe, according to John Adams, somebody who we cherish, why aren't we performing his music more often? So H&H is looking at expanding and finding other composers who sit outside that canon. And it's sometimes we think if you sit outside the canon, the music isn't the same quality. But Mozart was even jealous of Joseph Boulange because of the quality, the high quality of his music. And I mean, he was a great dancer. I mean, everybody loved this guy.
Great at fencing too, right?
Yeah, he's an incredible fencer. Absolutely.
The other thing about the way you program different work, because when Jonathan Woody's on a program, I think with another work that's based on an early, I guess, an early composer whose music, as it turned out, was mined by Stravinsky. So this is different eras talking to each other, different kinds of people talking. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, commissioning new works and creating new works that are based on older works is a great way to kind of freshen the repertoire for H&H and, expand itself outside of, its kind of subscription concerts to be a little bit more exploratory.
Now, at the other side of these cutting edge ideas, you also have a children's chorus at Handel and Haydn. Last time I checked, they were still recruiting, and it looks like a sort of an open-ended thing that people can get involved in.
Oh, absolutely. The children's chorus at H&H is fantastic. They have wonderful conductors that are there. I've known Jennifer Kane, who's one of the conductors for many years, and worked with her and so on. So yes, there's fantastic opportunities that are there at H&H. It's pretty comprehensive music education program as well. So if you're interested in singing and studying, learning theory, it's all available there for you at H&H.
And finally, we should mention you've got a program coming up virtually in the next few days. So maybe you can tell people a little bit about who's in it, what they're doing, and how to log on.
Absolutely. It's the glories of the Baroque, and it's featuring music of Vivaldi. On February 16th, it'll be released. It's actually free for the public with a suggested donation of $10. So it begins February 16th at 3 p.m. You can begin streaming it. Just head over to H&H's website, handelandhaydenSociety.org, and you can watch that amongst other videos that are there and free available to the public.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you. Looking forward to doing my work there.
Dr. Anthony Trecek-King from the Handel and Haydn Society.